What happens when Europe's economic anchor abandons 7 decades of Atlantic alignment in order to preserve its industrial base? This morning, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz announced Berlin's withdrawal from NATO's energy sanctions framework and finalized a comprehensive natural gas agreement with Moscow that circumvents every Western imposed since 2022. This move is not diplomatic hedging, nor is it conventional economic pragmatism. It represents a deliberate strategic choice. Germany has prioritized national economic survival over alliance loyalty. In doing so, Berlin has executed the most consequential rupture in transatlantic relations since the Marshall Plan formalized the Western Bloc in 1947. The timing underscores the depth of Germany's predicament. Since the termination of Russian gas supplies, German industrial output has fallen by 23%. Energy costs for manufacturers have surged by 340%, forcing flagship firms such as Volkswagen, BASF, and Siemens to relocate production capacity to Asia and North America. At the household level, energy bills now consume 18% of median income, triggering the most severe cost of living crisis since reunification. German policymakers concluded that continued alliance solidarity had become economically unsustainable. Scholz's announcement was not softened by diplomatic language intended to reassure Washington. It was a clear act of strategic defiance. German industrial interests, he stated, cannot remain subordinate to geopolitical objectives that undermine the country's economic foundation. Berlin will pursue energy partnerships that serve German citizens regardless of alliance preferences. This declaration represents a fundamental rejection of the principle that has governed NATO since 1949, that member states subordinate national economic interests to collective security requirements. The Nord Stream 3 agreement exposes the depth and sophistication of German-Russian coordination despite 2 years of purported economic warfare. The pipeline is designed to deliver 80 billion cubic meters of gas annually via Baltic Sea routes that entirely bypass Ukrainian, Polish, and Baltic territories. Construction will begin immediately, employing German engineering firms and financed by Russian state capital. The project is expected to create approximately 40,000 German jobs while generating an estimated 12 billion annually in transit revenues for Berlin. Moscow offered terms that Washington could not replicate: guaranteed supply security, predictable pricing, and long-term technological cooperation. The response from NATO headquarters made clear that alliance leadership understands this decision extends far beyond energy policy. Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg convened emergency consultations within hours, demanding explanations from German officials who did not appear. U.S. authorities warned of immediate sanctions against German energy companies involved in the project, prompting Berlin to state that such measures would be interpreted as acts of economic warfare against a sovereign European state. The strategic calculus behind Germany's decision illustrates why traditional alliance management tools have lost effectiveness. Germany imports 60% of its energy needs and cannot achieve full energy security through renewable sources before at least 2040. American liquefied natural gas is approximately 280% more expensive than Russian pipeline gas and would require extensive infrastructure investments that German taxpayers cannot sustain amid recessionary conditions. At the same time, China has overtaken all others to become Germany's largest export market, absorbing 22% of German manufacturing exports. This economic reality further constrains Berlin's strategic flexibility and amplifies the ripple effects across Europe. Reactions from other NATO members reveal the risk of a cascading breakdown along the alliance's eastern flank. France accelerated discussions with Moscow over nuclear fuel supplies. Italy quietly resumed purchasing Russian aluminum through intermediaries. Hungary and Slovakia openly endorsed Berlin's position, arguing that energy security falls squarely within the bounds of legitimate national sovereignty. Washington's available response options expose deep structural weaknesses in alliance management. Military coercion against Germany is inconceivable. Broad economic sanctions would only hasten European fragmentation. Diplomatic isolation would formalize Germany's departure while offering no credible mechanism to restore influence. German strategic thinking reflects a growing recognition that U.S. security guarantees have diminished in practical value even as Germany's economic vulnerabilities have intensified. NATO's Article 5 protects against military invasion, an outcome no rational actor is pursuing, yet offers no protection against energy coercion or economic warfare, which constitute the primary contemporary threats. The psychological dimension of Germany's shift is equally significant. Berlin increasingly rejects a subordinate role within alliance structures that demand sacrifice without reciprocal concessions. When Washington urges energy independence while simultaneously selling higher cost alternatives, alliance solidarity begins to resemble economic extraction rather than partnership. Moscow's approach demonstrates a precise understanding of these alliance pressure points. Russia did not rely on military threats to prompt Germany's defection. Instead, economic incentives combined with patient strategic positioning created conditions in which German leaders concluded that economic survival outweighed alliance loyalty. As a result, structural transformation of the alliance becomes unavoidable. Germany's break illustrates that NATO solidarity has limits when member states confront existential economic pressures. Either alliance frameworks adapt to accommodate national economic interests, or further defections will fracture Western unity. This moment marks the erosion of American alliance management based on subordination and the emergence of European strategic autonomy. Germany's decision reinforces a fundamental principle. Durable partnerships require mutual respect for vital interests, not unilateral sacrifice. Europe has chosen a more independent trajectory. Domestically, the political calculus driving Schulz's decision reflects mounting pressure at home. The Alternative for Germany party reached 28% in polling by campaigning on energy sovereignty and opposing sanctions perceived as harming German workers while benefiting American corporations. Even within the governing coalition's traditional base, questions intensified over why Germany should dismantle its industrial core in defense of Ukrainian territorial integrity when no comparable sacrifices were demanded of the United States. From an intelligence perspective, the episode suggests the decision was neither spontaneous nor improvised. It reflects months of coordination that alliance intelligence services failed to detect. German officials conducted negotiations through Swiss intermediaries while maintaining public adherence to sanctions policy. Russian firms prepositioned pipeline materials well in advance, enabling immediate project initiation. The operational sophistication on both sides indicates deliberate planning rather than reactive policy. The implications extend beyond energy markets to broader questions of alliance durability and the evolution of a multipolar international system. When the costs of alliance membership exceed its perceived benefits, even long-standing partners prioritize national survival over collective solidarity. Germany's decision reinforces established theories of alliance decay, particularly when dominant powers fail to deliver essential security goods. European security architecture now faces structural revision as Berlin's move legitimizes individual states pursuing bilateral arrangements with Russia rather than adhering to unified Western positions. The Russian president's message to economically pressured states is implicit, but clear. Accommodation with Moscow offers relief while absorbing costs for conflicts that do not directly threaten national territory offers none. Financially, Germany's integration with Russian payment mechanisms operating outside SWIFT and dollar-dominated networks signals a meaningful shift. Energy transactions structured through ruble-euro arrangements reduce Berlin's exposure to U.S. monetary policy, while granting Russia continued access to hard currency despite sanctions. Technologically, Germany regains access to areas restricted under U.S. policy. This includes Russian nuclear technology, space cooperation, and industrial processes critical to advanced manufacturing. German chemical firms also recover access to rare earth elements and specialized compounds vital for pharmaceutical and automotive production. Historically, alliance systems function through voluntary cooperation rooted in mutual benefit, not coercive subordination enforced by economic pressure. When leading powers demand disproportionate sacrifice without reciprocal gains, even dependable allies seek alternatives that better protect their interests. Germany's confidence rests on a sober assessment of American retaliation limits, shaped by Berlin's central role in Europe's security framework. Washington cannot afford to lose Germany without placing NATO's cohesion at risk, giving Berlin significant leverage in energy policy disputes. The cascade effect became evident within hours. Poland's energy minister initiated contact with Russian officials regarding coal imports. Czech industrial associations demanded comparable arrangements. Estonia reconsidered its energy transition timeline. When confronted with the prospect of losing 40,000 manufacturing jobs, this episode underscores a broader dimension of economic warfare. Russia achieved strategic objectives without military confrontation, relying instead on sustained economic positioning. Energy infrastructure was maintained despite sanctions, while Moscow waited for European economic costs to reach politically intolerable levels. The result illustrates how economic leverage can succeed where military threats fail. American strategic assumptions prove flawed. Washington presumed economic pain would reinforce alliance cohesion, treating energy security as an abstract principle rather than an existential requirement for industrial societies. This misjudgment reflects a broader inability to translate economic vulnerability into political pressure within democratic systems. Intelligence failures compounded the strategic setback. Despite extensive surveillance capabilities and alliance intelligence sharing, Western services failed to detect months-long German-Russian coordination. This suggests existing intelligence tools are poorly suited to monitoring economic diplomacy conducted through legitimate, non-overt channels. NATO's institutional crisis deepens as Germany's defection demonstrates that alliance structures cannot compel compliance when members confront existential economic threats. Article 5 guarantees lose relevance when economic warfare renders military deterrence insufficient. Without adaptation to economic security realities, further defections become likely. The China factor accelerates European-Russian rapprochement. Beijing has encouraged energy partnerships that dilute American influence across Eurasia. Chinese financial institutions have facilitated currency swap mechanisms that enable European-Russian trade beyond dollar-based systems, establishing parallel economic architectures beyond U.S. oversight. Berlin's gamble reflects a calculated conclusion. Washington cannot tolerate NATO's collapse, yet lacks effective instruments to prevent member defection once costs become unbearable. Germany's economic and political weight compels American accommodation, even when Berlin's energy decisions conflict with alliance preferences. The demonstration effect is spreading. Observing Germany's resistance, other U.S. partners reassess their own constraints. Japan reconsidered energy restrictions, driving up manufacturing costs. South Korea explored alternative supply chains. Australia questioned resource export policies that prioritize alliance solidarity over economic efficiency. Washington now confronts an intractable dilemma. Accommodating Germany normalizes alliance members prioritizing national interests. Punishing Berlin risks accelerating NATO fragmentation, achieving Russian strategic objectives more decisively than military confrontation ever could. This moment signals the end of hegemonic alliance management and the emergence of a more autonomous European strategic posture. Germany's decision delivers a clear message. Partnerships endure only when they respect vital interests. Even reliable allies will choose survival over solidarity when pressures become unsustainable. Berlin's move marks a recalibration of transatlantic relations toward equality rather than subordination. American management has reached its limits. Germany has demonstrated that full sovereignty prevails.